company I know refreshed its product docs on a Friday, a new refund policy, and a cleaned up site. Their support assistant kept answering questions all weekend, fast and confident, exactly the way it always had. And every answer about the new policy was wrong, quoting numbers that hadn't been true since Thursday. Nobody had touched the model or the prompt, and every tool still worked. The assistant was reading from a copy of the docs made before the refresh, and nobody had rebuilt it. This is a retrieval failure, and retrieval sits inside the largest domain on the professional exam. It's also the one topic the foundations exam told you to skip. The implementation details of embedding models and vector databases were out of scope, so even certified people arrive with a hole right here. The nickname for this whole discipline is RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So here is the question I'll answer by the end. How can a system be this confident and this wrong with nothing actually broken? And how do you design retrieval so it can't happen quietly? Let me build it up from nothing, because the failure hides in how it's built. A model doesn't know your company's private documents, they weren't in its training, and you wouldn't retrain it every time a policy changes. So when a question comes in, you go find the few passages from your docs that are relevant and you paste them into the prompt right before the model answers. The model doesn't remember your docs, it reads them fresh every single time. That fetch then answer move is RAG, and the answer is only ever as good as what you fetched. The first place it goes wrong is the least glamorous step, cutting the documents up. You can't store a giant manual as one blob, so you split it into smaller pieces called chunks and store each one so it can be found later. The lazy way is to cut every so many characters and move on. But meaning lives in units. A paragraph, a clause, a function, and a blind fixed size cut lands right in the middle of them. Split a refund rule across two chunks, and retrieval hands the model half a rule, which it answers with total confidence. The first time I looked at my own chunks, half of them had a sentence sliced clean in two, and I'd been quietly blaming the model for a week. So the principle is to chunk for coherence, cut on the document's own boundaries so each piece still means something alone, and chunk size becomes a trade-off you choose on purpose. Let's run one the way you would on exam day. A team builds retrieval over a library of legal contracts, chunks every document into fixed equal pieces, and now clauses get split across two chunks, so the model answers with half a rule. The answer is B, chunk on the contract's own structure, clause and section boundaries. So each chunk stays a coherent unit even when the sizes vary. Option A, move to a bigger context window, is scale, not strategy. A bigger container doesn't unsplit a clause that was already cut before it was stored. Option C, tell the system prompt to watch for split clauses, fixes the wrong layer. The model can't reassemble context retrieval, never handed it. Option D, retrieve fewer chunks is just a knob. Fewer chunks of the same broken kind are still broken. Find the constraint, the blind cut, name the principle, coherence over a round number, and only B does that. Now back to that Friday, because we can finally name what happened. When you chunk your docs, you turn each chunk into a stored searchable entry, and the whole store is called the index. The index is a copy, a snapshot of your documents frozen at the moment you built it. And here is the quiet, uncomfortable part. The model read exactly what you gave it, you just gave it last month's answer. The docs changed, nobody rebuilt the index, so retrieval kept serving Thursday's chunks perfectly all weekend. So re-indexing isn't a one-time setup step, it's part of the pipeline, and it runs whenever the source changes. There's a sneakier version too, if you rebuild how you encode the chunks but not how you encode the question. The two stop lining up and retrieval quietly returns near misses instead of matches. Either way, the symptom is identical, confident and wrong, normal latency, model unchanged, and the cause is upstream in the index. So blaming the model or rewriting the prompt fixes the wrong layer. So the chunks are cut well and the index is fresh. Now the bigger decision, and it's the one the exam is really testing. How you retrieve depends on what your data is and what people ask of it. The habit is to treat retrieval as one move, embed everything and do a similarity search, but that's only right for one kind of data. Look at the shape of what you're searching, and there are roughly 3 shapes. Prose is the first free text policies articles where the same idea gets worded a dozen ways, and that's where semantic search earns its keep, because you retrieve by meaning. Structured data is the second, tables and records, where the answer is exact and usually filtered or counted. Semantic similarity is the wrong instrument there, so you hit the database directly and let it filter and count. Code is the third, where exact symbols and structure matter, so you retrieve by function or call graph, not by fuzzy resemblance. Prose, structured, code, 3 shapes, and each one wants a different retrieval move. Then layer on what the person is actually asking, and there are 2 query patterns that pull in opposite directions. A lookup wants one specific fact, so you want narrow, precise retrieval, while a synthesis question wants you to gather many sources and reason across them, so you want a broader retrieval with wider coverage. 2 patterns, lookup and synthesis, so the architect names the data, shape and the query pattern before picking a strategy, not after. Here is one about matching retrieval to the data. An analytics assistant runs over a database of transactions, built as semantic search over embedded rows, and it handles find me, this order, fine, but gets counting and filtering wrong, like how many high-value refunds happened last quarter. The answer is A for structured data and exact filter or count questions. Query the database directly and keep semantic retrieval for the unstructured prose. Option B, a bigger embedding model, is scale not strategy. A fancier vector still answers a counting question by resemblance, which is the wrong operation. Option C, retrieve many more rows and let the model count them, is a knob that makes it slower and less reliable. Option D, add worked counting examples to the prompt, fixes the wrong layer. Examples can't turn a similarity search into arithmetic over the real table. The constraint is the data shape, structured records with exact aggregation and only matches the instrument to the data. There is one upgrade to plain chunking worth knowing by name, because it's a proven best practice and it's almost embarrassingly simple. Remember the problem, a chunk gets cut off from the context that made it make sense. The fix is to write a short sentence of context for each chunk, where it came from and what it's about, and glue that sentence on before you store it. That's it, one extra line per chunk, generated once when you build the index. Anthropic measured this, and using that context in both the semantic search and a keyword search cut the rate of failed retrievals by about half. The exact numbers are on screen. A chunk that used to just say customers may return items within the standard window now reads from the refund policy, customers may return items within the standard window. So it surfaces for the right question and it can't be confused with the old rule. It's called contextual retrieval, and the lesson under it is the theme of this whole episode. Context is what makes a chunk findable, and a naked chunk is a liability. Now the honest part, the vector database vendors won't lead with. Sometimes the right retrieval strategy is no retrieval at all. If your whole knowledge base is small enough to fit in the model's window, a few hundred pages, you can just put all of it in the prompt and skip the pipeline. No chunking to get wrong, no index to go stale. But that only works while the corpus genuinely fits and stays small. A bigger context window is a container, not a retrieval strategy, and reaching for it to dodge real design is exactly the trap the exam calls out. Last one, and it's about knowing when not to build the pipeline at all. A team is standing up a full vector database with chunking and re-embedding for a support knowledge base that's only a few hundred pages and rarely changes, reasoning that this is just how retrieval is done. The answer is D. The whole base fits in the model's window, so put it in the prompt, cache it, and skip retrieval until the corpus outgrows the window. Option A, that retrieval is mandatory for any document question, is a stale idea that stopped being true once windows got large enough to hold a small corpus. Option B, chunk as small as possible to save cost, is a knob that actively hurts tiny chunks lose the coherence we spent the whole episode protecting. Option C, route everything to the biggest context model and load all the docs plus full history every request, is scale not strategy, expensive, slow, and still not a design. So back to that confident, cheerful, wrong assistant from Friday. Nothing was broken, and that was the whole problem. The model was fine, the prompt was fine, the tools worked, and the answers were wrong because the copy it read had gone out of date. Retrieval is the layer where a system can be perfectly healthy and completely wrong at once, which is why the exam takes it so seriously. You chunk for coherence, and you treat the index as living, rebuilding it when the source changes. You match retrieval to the data shape and the question, and you glue context onto your chunks so they can be found. And when the whole thing fits in the window, you have the confidence to skip retrieval altogether. Find the constraint, name the principle, pick the option that breaks nothing. This failure hid for a whole weekend because nobody watched the right signal. So next we ask how you'd catch it in an hour instead of after a customer does, which is monitoring a system like this at scale.